Chapter 28:16. Lan Hongtai looked at the battle stage that was completely enveloped by the rainbow energy. Under Bailey Hongzhuang's control, not even the sound from inside could be heard. Obviously, Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyan had their own accounts to settle. At this point, Lan Hongtai and the others had already seen through the situation. The matter between the two juniors should be settled by themselves. It was meaningless for them to intervene. On the contrary, it might even cause the two to be dissatisfied with each other. Whether it was right or wrong, it was up to them to decide. When Bailey Hongzhuang withdrew the rainbow light, the crowd could see everything on the battle stage clearly. In their line of sight, Bailey Hongzhuang's white robe was pure and untainted. Although it was stained with some dust, it could not hide her stunning appearance and magnificence. The crowd's eyes sized up Bailey Hongzhuang's face for a moment before shifting to Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. In her hand, there was a rainbow bead that was emitting a bright light. Seeing this scene, the crowd could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Their faces were filled with horror. Obviously, this rainbow sacred bead could not belong to Bailey Hongzhuang. It could only belong to Lan Qingyan. So, Bailey Hongzhuang really took out the rainbow sacred bead from Lan Qingyan's body? Lan Hongtai and the rest also narrowed their eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang really did what she said. She said she would take out the rainbow sacred bead and she really did it. Behind Bailey Hongzhuang, Lan Qingyan had fallen to the ground forever. There was no possibility of her standing up again. Until the moment before her death, Lan Qingyan regretted that she did not listen to Lan Jingquang's words. If she could endure it, at least she would still be alive. Unfortunately, all of this regret could only be brought to the Yellow Springs. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Lan Barong with a faint smile on her face and said, "Great Elder, this death match has ended." Lan Barong was stunned for a moment before he quickly nodded. "The winner is Lan Yixuan." The crowd was in an uproar. No one went to check on Lan Qingyan's condition because they had already sensed that Lan Qingyan's aura had already dissipated. Even though they had expected this to happen, when it really happened, they still couldn't come to their senses. Could anyone blame Bailey Hongzhuang? None of them would be able to accept the grudge from that year. Moreover, Lan Qingyan had always been proud of killing Bailey Hongzhuang. Therefore, no matter what the final result was, everyone could only choose to accept it. After Bailey Hongzhuang walked down from the stage, Bewitching and the others quickly went up to greet her with joyful smiles on their faces. "Hongzhuang, you really gave us a fright just now." Mu Lingbing chuckled. She was finally able to relax. "Mother, I've made you worry. It's good that it's over. Now we don't have to worry anymore." Mu Lingbing was extremely relaxed. Whether it was Lan Yunxiao or Bailey Hongzhuang, they had already accomplished what they wanted to do. After so many years of grudge, they had finally gotten their revenge. Lan Yunxiao nodded at Lan Hongtai before returning to his residence with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. As for the rest, they would leave it to the house head and the various elders to deal with. Chapter 28:17. Jingquang, what are you thinking about? Yu Manlan couldn't help but ask when she saw Lan Jingquang's worried expression. "I'm wondering if Qingyan listened to me and chose to give up on today's death match." Yu Manlan frowned. "If Qingyan gives up today, then we'll be finished for the rest of our days." "You're wrong. If Qingyan accepts, then we'll be finished for the rest of our days." Lan Jingquang shook his head. But Yu Manlan didn't understand. "With Qingyan's strength, I don't think she'll lose against Bailey Hongzhuang. In my opinion, it's better to have a head-on battle. Once Qingyan wins, we'll be able to turn defeat into victory." "You still don't understand? Whether it's strength or personality, Qingyan can't compare to Bailey Hongzhuang. Since Bailey Hongzhuang dared to propose a death match, it proves that she has the confidence to win. Once Qingyan agrees, she'll fall into Bailey Hongzhuang's trap." Lan Jingquang's eyes were deep. He never felt that he was weaker than Lan Yunxiao, but when it came to Lan Qingyan and Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't deny that Bailey Hongzhuang was better than Lan Qingyan. This child's will was so steady that it was terrifying. She had single-handedly orchestrated such a good show. If it was an ordinary person, it would be hard to imagine. "You're underestimating Qingyan too much. I think Qingyan is the most powerful." Yu Manlan didn't care. In her heart, no one could compare to Lan Qingyan. However, at this moment, a cold voice slowly came from the front of the prison. "You Manlan, this time your beautiful dream will be completely shattered." Hearing this, Yu Manlan's gaze froze. She hurriedly looked at the entrance of the prison and saw Mu Lingbing slowly walking over. The moment Mu Lingbing appeared, Yu Manlan's expression instantly darkened. "Mu Lingbing, what are you doing here?" The person Yu Manlan didn't want to see the most was Mu Lingbing. She had lost too thoroughly. "All these years, every time you went to the Yu clan's prison to see me, why didn't you ask yourself what you were doing?" Seeing Yu Manlan again, the coldness in Mu Lingbing's eyes didn't lessen. Yu Manlan's words were stuck in her throat. She could only stare coldly at Mu Lingbing. Compared to the arrogance she had felt in the past 19 years, the feeling now was extremely unbearable. "What did you mean by that?" Lan Jing stared at Mu Lingbing, his eyes wild with rage. Mu Lingbing glanced at Lan Jingquang. "Lan Qingyan is already dead, so you don't have to hold on to any hope." As soon as these words were spoken, Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan were both stunned. Their faces were filled with disbelief. "That's impossible!" Yu Manlan screamed. "You're talking nonsense. Could it be that she participated in the death match?" Lan Jingquang frowned. Though he was shocked, he did not lose his composure. "Looks like you already know. Even if Qingyan participated in the death match, she would never lose to Bailey Hongzhuang." Yu Manlan's eyes flashed red, and her heart couldn't help but tremble. She absolutely couldn't believe that all of this was real. "It looks like you still don't have a proper understanding of your daughter's strength." Seeing Yu Manlan's hysterical appearance, Mu Lingbing's lips slowly curved into a smile. Chapter 28:18. Are you telling the truth? Lan Jingquang asked in a low voice. Mu Lingbing didn't find it strange that Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan were so suspicious. However, what she took out in the next second caused their expressions to change. The item in Mu Lingbing's hand was the rainbow pearl. Both Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan were familiar with the appearance of the rainbow pearl. When Yu Xiqing had taken the rainbow pearl out of Bailey Hongzhuang's body, they had seen it before. However, the rainbow pearl in Mu Lingbing's hand was much larger than the one they had seen at that time. If they had doubted Mu Lingbing's words before, now that they had seen the evidence, they knew that it was the truth. "How could this be?" Yu Manlan murmured. She couldn't help but take 2 steps back and sit on the ground with a thud. "Qingyan is dead. Qingyan is dead." Tears flowed from Yu Manlan's eyes. She sat there in a daze, as if she had lost her soul. Her face was pale. She had never thought that her only daughter would die like this. Lan Jingquang's expression was also extremely ugly. He didn't think that after all his advice yesterday, Lan Qingyan still wouldn't listen to him in the end. "I came here to tell you not to have any more hope. What you will face next will be revenge for all the pain you have suffered for the past 19 years. With that, Mu Lingbing turned and left the dungeon. Seeing the tears on the two's faces, she had already achieved her goal. "Master, congratulations on breaking through to the Purple Realm." The 3 beasts stood in a row in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, their faces full of smiles. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and patted the heads of the 3 beasts. Today's harvest was not bad. This trip to the Lan family had been much simpler than she had imagined. It was all because Lan Hongtai's heart had always been on their side. Otherwise, the situation would have been much more complicated. "Master, no matter what, Lan Qingyan is still your elder sister. If you take her life like this, won't it be detrimental to your reputation if word gets out?" Xiao Bai asked somewhat worriedly. It could feel that the way the members of the Lan family looked at Bailey Hongzhuang had changed. There was a complicated and helpless look in their eyes. "If you don't remove the roots when cutting weeds, they'll grow again when the spring breeze blows. I won't make the same mistake again." Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze was resolute. Lan Jingquang's men had ended up like this because of a moment of carelessness. Even though she didn't believe that Lan Qingyan had such capabilities, but no matter what, she wasn't willing to put her parents and the people who loved her in danger. So this was the only way. Right now, everyone's reaction is only temporary. People are forgetful. After a while, all these discussions will completely disappear. Bailey Hongzhuang appeared to be very calm. These verbal attacks were of no threat to her. Moreover, after the person involved knew about the grudges that had happened all these years, no one could blame her. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was unmoved, the three beasts heaved a sigh of relief. They were worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would care about these things. Then, what does Master plan to do with the Rainbow Pearl? Chapter 28:19. Bailey Hongzhuang fell into deep thought. With her master's hatred for the Lan family, it was impossible for him to take back the Rainbow's sacred pearl. Then there was only one person left who was most suitable to absorb the Rainbow's sacred pearl, and that was her father, Lan Yunxiao. Although Lan Yunxiao wasn't the inheritor of the Rainbow's sacred pearl, he was still extremely powerful. If he could successfully absorb the Rainbow's sacred pearl, then he would be fully deserving of being the head of the Lan family. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't feel much about the Lan family. After all, she didn't have any memories of them after all these years. But Lan Yunxiao was different. He had grown up in the Lan family since he was young, so he had too much attachment and responsibility for the family. Moreover, Lan Yunxiao's reputation in the Lan family far exceeded that of ordinary people. Although it would be many years before Lan Yunxiao would become the head of the family, with his current state, he was undoubtedly the most suitable candidate. "It looks like I need to have a talk with my father tonight," Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. The three beasties revealed a trace of a smile. It looked like their master had the same thoughts as them. That night, Lan Yunxiao, Mu Lingbing, and Bailey Hongzhuang gathered together. Now that all of the Lan clan's troubles had been resolved, the three of them felt a wave of relief in their hearts. They were also happy and harmonious when they gathered together. "You're saying that you can merge the Rainbow's sacred pearl into my body?" Shock surfaced on Lan Yunxiao's face. Although he already knew that the Rainbow's sacred pearl in Bailey Hongzhuang's body belonged to Yu Linfeng, he didn't know the process behind it. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang mentioned it, he only felt extremely shocked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. However, merging with the Rainbow's sacred pearl requires great pain. Most people wouldn't be able to endure it. "I heard from Linfeng that you were able to merge with the Rainbow's sacred pearl because you were the inheritor of the Rainbow's sacred pearl, but I wasn't." Lan Yunxiao furrowed his brows. Although this news made him jump for joy, the process of implementing it was extremely difficult. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and said, "Lan Qingyan is also not the successor of the Rainbow Pearl, but didn't she also merge with the Rainbow Pearl?" Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing couldn't help but look at each other. They had forgotten this point. The method Lan Qingyan used to fuse with the Rainbow Pearl seems to be different? Mu Lingbing asked. Indeed, the method that Lan Jingquang and the others used was very risky. If Lan Qingyan was unable to successfully merge with the Rainbow Divine Pearl, then she could have paid the price with her life. However, Lan Qingyan was very young at that time and her body's tolerance was very strong. That's why she was able to withstand it. Chapter 28:20. Bailey Hongzhuang herself was an outstanding divine doctor. Her knowledge in this field far exceeded the understanding of ordinary people. Yu Linfeng was indeed a genius. That was how he was able to discover the method to fuse the Rainbow Pearl. Bailey Hongzhuang was able to build on Yu Linfeng's foundation and go even deeper. "Hongzhuang, are you really confident in this?" Mu Lingbing stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. She had always trusted Bailey Hongzhuang, but this matter concerned Lan Yunxiao's life, so she couldn't help but worry. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "This matter concerns father's safety. If I didn't have enough confidence, why would I bring it up?" With Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the worry in Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao's hearts completely dissipated. Geniuses couldn't be measured by common sense. "Hongzhuang, actually, it's a good thing for you to succeed as the Lan family's head." Lan Yunxiao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. To him, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang became the Lan family's head, it was the same as him becoming the Lan family's head. After all these years of experience, he had long become indifferent to such matters. In his eyes, all of this originally belonged to Bailey Hongzhuang. "Father, to me, becoming the next Lan family's head isn't what I want. Rather than bearing this responsibility, I would rather have more freedom. Moreover, my connection with Limitless Palace can no longer be severed. Once I become the Lan family's head, what will happen to Limitless Palace?" Lan Yunxiao was silent for a moment. He had already thought of the problem Bailey Hongzhuang raised. Since you already have a plan in mind, we will support you no matter what. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang told her thoughts to Lan Hongtai and the other elders. Everyone was shocked when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's decision. They didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to make such a decision. However, after a short silence, no one objected. Bailey Hongzhuang was still young. If Lan Yunxiao inherited the family head position, Bailey Hongzhuang would have more time to develop. Moreover, Lan Yunxiao's prestige in the Lan family had always been unmatched by others. After a short discussion, everyone agreed to Bailey Hongzhuang's suggestion. After that, everything went smoothly. The Lan clan did not put up any resistance after hearing the news. Although they had gone through an internal conflict, the remaining members of the Lan family were more united than before. After Yuman Lan and Lan Jingquang knew that Lan Qingyan had fallen, the two of them fell into despair. The second elder and the other elders pleaded with Lan Hongtai, but at this time, Lan Hongtai showed his ruthless side. He didn't spare the second elder and the others. Instead, he chose to kill them. Back then, it was precisely because the family couldn't work together that the tragedy happened. Now that the family was finally united, he couldn't let such a black sheep affect the entire family. Although the process was a bit disappointing, Lan Hongtai knew very well that once these tumors were removed, the Lan family would develop even better. At least before he stepped down from the Lan family's head position, he had to lay a good foundation for Lan Yunxiao. Let him take on these reputations that were not against him. Chapter 28-21. The Lan family members were extremely shocked when they learned that Lan Hongtai had made such a decision. This was completely different from the house head's previous style, but none of the elders objected. They were all too clear that if a family wanted to undergo a transformation, it would definitely undergo a baptism of blood. Although the process was cruel, the benefits were equally great. Speaking of which, the reason why this decision was carried out so smoothly was all thanks to the internal strife of Lan Jingquang and the others. If it weren't for that internal strife that allowed the Lan family members to clearly see the existence of this crisis, it would have been difficult to carry out this plan. Lan Kaiqing and the others had always believed that the house head wouldn't be so ruthless to them, so when they learned of the house head's orders, all of them fell into madness. Impossible! The house head wouldn't do this to us. Lan Kaiqing shook his head continuously, his face full of despair. As the Lan family's elders, even if we didn't make any contributions, we still worked hard. Even if we made the wrong choice this time, isn't it too cruel for him to do this? Lan Yongtai's face was also filled with disbelief, pain, and disbelief. Lan Borong looked at Lan Kaiqing and the others who had fallen into madness with a sigh. It's not frightening that you chose the wrong side, but the methods you've done these years have exceeded the limits of what we can tolerate. Now that things have come to this, you should peacefully accept this result. These years, Lan Kaiqing and the others' actions hadn't escaped Lan Hongtai's eyes. However, after Lan Hongtai lost Lan Yunxiao, he fell into a state of depression and was too lazy to pay attention to many things. Now that Lan Yunxiao had returned, the situation was completely different. Therefore, they wouldn't continue to indulge in all the mistakes they had made and the hidden dangers they had created. Hearing the decisiveness in Lan Borong's words, Lan Kaiqing and the others all paled to the extreme. If they still had a trace of hope before, now they knew that there was no longer any possibility. Not far away, after hearing Lan Hongtai's decision, Lan Jingquang's handsome face also lost all color. The jealousy and resentment in his heart surged to the extreme. He fiercely punched the wall, leaving behind a bright red blood stain. Jingquang. Seeing Lan Jingquang's actions, Yuman Lan was shocked. She quickly walked to Lan Jingquang's side. That damned old man. Back then, all I did was destroy Lan Yunxiao's family, yet he treated me like that. Now, in order to help Lan Yunxiao stabilize his position, he actually ordered everyone's lives to be taken. In the end, I have no weight at all in his heart. Although Lan Jingquang was locked up in the dungeon, he still had some understanding of what was happening outside. Especially the important news that Lan Yunxiao was about to succeed the Lan family head. Almost everyone was talking about it, which was what he found most difficult to accept. Hearing Lan Jing's crazy complaints, Yu Manlan also fell silent. Now, they had already lost all hope. In comparison, Lan Kaiching and the others dying a quick death was already a kind of pleasure. On the other hand, they would probably suffer endless torture. After Lan Borong announced the order and left, Lan Kaiching and the others looked at Lan Jingquang and Lan Yu with eyes full of anger. It's all your fault. It's all because of you. Chapter 28-22. Father, are you ready? In the secluded room, Bailey Hongzhuang gazed at Lan Yunxiao. Her ink-black phoenix eyes flickered with a serious light. Today was the day she would help Lan Yunxiao fuse with the rainbow pearl. Lan Yunxiao nodded with a serious expression. I'm ready. In order to be able to fuse with the rainbow god bead, Bailey Hongzhuang had done many experiments these days to ensure that Lan Yunxiao would be able to successfully fuse with it. When Bailey Hongzhuang fused with the rainbow pearl, her cultivation was still very low. Lan Yunxiao's current state was undoubtedly much stronger than before. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's current cultivation couldn't compare to Yu Linfeng's, it was enough for her to fuse with the rainbow pearl. This process is very painful. Father, you must be mentally prepared, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but remind him again. Seeing the worry on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, Lan Yunxiao chuckled. Silly girl, do you think the pain I've endured these past few years isn't enough? Don't worry, your father's will is very firm. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang froze for a moment, the smile on her face widening. Lan Yunxiao was her father. If she could endure it back then, Lan Yunxiao would only be stronger than her. Then I'll begin. Bailey Hongzhuang said solemnly. Come. Outside the room, Sidu Yen, Mu Zhens, Lan Hongtai, Mu Lingbing, Di Beichen, and Mo Yunjue were all gathered together, nervously looking at the closed door. The risk of fusing with the rainbow pearl wasn't small. Although Bailey Hongzhuang spoke with great confidence, everyone couldn't help but worry. Because if they failed, they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Mu Lingbing's fingers were intertwined as she bit her red lips. The worry on her face couldn't be more obvious. Sidu Yen and Mu Jins didn't say anything and just stood there quietly. However, from their gazes, it was clear that they were also worried. Lan Hongtai, on the other hand, was pacing back and forth, using this method to release the tension in his heart. He had already lost Lan Yunxiao once. If something unexpected happened, he wouldn't be able to take another blow. In comparison, Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue were slightly calmer. They both knew that if Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't completely confident, she wouldn't have done this. After being together for so long, they had an indescribable trust in Bailey Hongzhuang. On this day, although the elders of the Lan family did not come, they were also nervous because this was related to the future of the Lan family. The fusion took a long time. Everyone could only roughly judge the situation in the room by the energy coming out of the room, but no one knew how it was progressing. Inside the room, Bailey Hongzhuang was also anxiously carrying out everything. Fortunately, Lan Yunxiao had absolute trust in him, so nothing went wrong during the fusion process. This fusion took a full 7 days. For 7 days, Lan Hongtai and the rest stood guard outside the room, never leaving. The more time passed, the more worried everyone became because they could no longer sense any fluctuations in the room. Mu Lingbing couldn't help but take a deep breath to relieve the pressure in her heart. She muttered to herself, "It's been so many days. Nothing should happen, right?" Mu Jins placed a hand on Mu Lingbing's shoulder and comforted her. "Don't worry, nothing will happen." Chapter 28-23. Just when everyone was feeling uneasy, there was a sudden movement in the house. Everyone's eyes looked towards the house at the first moment, and their expressions revealed a bit of nervousness. The surroundings seemed to fall into silence in an instant. Everyone could hear the heavy breathing of Mu Lingbing and the rest. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the room, afraid that they would miss something. A moment later, the tightly shut door suddenly opened. Bailey Hongzhuang was the first to walk out. Looking at the nervous crowd outside, she revealed a smile. The originally nervous crowd couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief when they saw the smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Mu Lingbing's mind was stretched taut like a string, and she finally relaxed, her whole body somewhat unsteady. Mu Jin's eyes were sharp and her hands were nimble. She immediately supported Mu Lingbing, but Mu Lingbing shook her head, indicating that she didn't need to worry. After Bailey Hongzhuang walked out, everyone couldn't help but look behind Bailey Hongzhuang, but they didn't see Lan Yunxiao's figure. Immediately, doubt appeared on the faces of the people who had originally heaved a sigh of relief. "Yishuan, where's your father?" Lan Hongtai asked. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile, her expression light. "Don't worry, father has already successfully merged with the rainbow pearl. The pearl's power is very strong. Father is currently in the process of breaking through. Once he succeeds, he will naturally come out." Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone finally sighed in relief. Joyful smiles surfaced on their faces. This was truly delightful news. Now we can be at ease. Mu Jins looked at Mu Lingbing beside her. Among all of them, Mu Lingbing was the most nervous. This daughter of hers was also infatuated with love like her. It was a good thing that Lan Yunxiao had always treated her well. Mu Lingbing nodded. She seemed to have guessed Mu Jin's thoughts. Mu Lingbing was a little embarrassed. She was indeed a little too nervous. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze swept across everyone. From their mental state, she could guess that they had been guarding outside the house for the past 7 days and had never left. "We can rest assured now. Everyone go back and rest. Once father has completed his breakthrough, he will naturally come out," Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Although everyone in front of her was tired, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a strong sense of kinship. Everyone in front of her was her family. "Yishuan, you've been working the hardest these days. Hurry up and go back to rest." Mu Jins did not overlook the exhaustion on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. She had helped to market the fusion of the Rainbow God bead, so the consumption was definitely not small. "That's right. Hurry up and go back to rest. Have a good rest," everyone said with concern. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and did not refuse. Her consumption these past few days was not small. If she hadn't successfully broken through to the Purple Realm, it would have been very difficult to help Lan Yunxiao complete the fusion. Di Beichen quickly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and reached out to support Bailey Hongzhuang's slender waist. "I'll send Hongzhuang back to rest first." Everyone nodded, their faces filled with concern for Bailey Hongzhuang. Mo Yunjue also followed Di Beichen to send Bailey Hongzhuang back. The two of them could sense that Bailey Hongzhuang's aura was very weak. It was clear that the fusion had consumed a lot of her energy. Chapter 28-24. Controlling the fusion of the Rainbow Pearl consumed my yuan power and mental strength. My condition is a little bad, but I'll be able to recover in a few days. Don't worry about me. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was gentle. Although her complexion was somewhat pale, her eyes were gentle. "Yunjue, it must have been hard on you to guard outside my room these past few days. Now that I'm fine, you should have a good rest too." Bailey Hongzhuang had always felt somewhat apologetic towards Mo Yunjue because she was unable to repay his kindness. However, she also understood that if she directly rejected him, it would hurt Mo Yunjue's heart even more. Thus, she could only interact with him as a friend. Mo Yunjue had long understood the current way of getting along with Bailey Hongzhuang, but he was also very happy that Bailey Hongzhuang had already regarded him as a relative. In any case, the relationship between them was relatively close. Compared to disappearing in Bailey Hongzhuang's world, he wanted to accompany Bailey Hongzhuang in this way. "Then I'll go back first. You guys should rest early too." Di Beichen nodded. "All right." As the time he spent with Mo Yunjue increased, Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue began to appreciate each other. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang, the two of them would have become good friends. Not long after Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her room, they felt a tyrannical aura erupt from Lan Yunxiao's room. It was obvious that he had successfully broken through. Lan Yunxiao's breakthrough took an entire 7 days. During this period of time, the entire Lan family had learned of this news and were all overjoyed. The changes in the Lan family quickly spread throughout the entire Xingxian continent, shocking everyone. All these years, the Lan family's position in the aristocratic families had always been very stable and there had never been any changes. Unexpectedly, Just when everyone was certain that Lan Qingyan would become the head of the Lan family, such an unforeseen event occurred. At the same time, the shocking secret from 19 years ago was exposed. In an instant, everyone understood the grudges between Lan Jingquang and Lan Yunxiao. They were extremely shocked by Bailey Hongzhuang's sudden appearance. During the Battle of Zhuolu, Bailey Hongzhuang's name had already resounded throughout the Xingxian continent. Following the appearance of this secret, everyone knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's true background was so valiant. And her forbearance and sacrifice all these years was even more shocking. Many youths immediately idolized Bailey Hongzhuang because the changes she experienced over the years were absolutely a legend. Lan Jingquang had controlled the Lan family for so many years, but who would have thought that he would completely lose his position in such a short period of time? Even the famous genius Lan Qingyan had fallen just like that. It was truly lamentable. Those who originally wanted to take advantage of the Lan family's internal strife to do something to the Lan family completely gave up on this idea when they found out that the Lan family's in-laws were actually the Tiangang sect and the Sun Moon Palace. Once these three colossi joined forces, in addition to the Limitless Palace, they were simply the four giants of the Xingxian continent. Who would dare to offend them? Following this unforeseen event, the entire Xingxian continent's top forces changed. Chapter 28-25. After successfully merging with the Rainbow Pearl, Lan Yunxiao had broken through from the 7th level of the Purple Realm to the 9th level, becoming the Lan family's #1 expert. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were pleasantly surprised by Lan Yunxiao's advancement. After reaching the Purple Realm, each level required a long time. They didn't expect that Lan Yunxiao would directly advance 2 levels after successfully merging with the Rainbow Pearl. This was truly a pleasant surprise. Thus, Lan Yunxiao was more than suitable to become the patriarch of the Nan family. When Lan Jingquang found out that Lan Yunxiao had fused with the Rainbow God Pearl, he also collapsed. He had taken the Rainbow God Pearl from Bailey Hongzhuang's body and given it to Lan Qingyan for so many years. Who would have thought that in the end, it was used as a dowry for Lan Yunxiao? The Rainbow Pearl had been cultivated in Lan Qingyan's body for so long to reach its current level of energy. He didn't expect that it would all fall into Lan Yunxiao's hands. This feeling of going for wool and coming home shorn was the most unbearable. Lan Jingquang, you didn't expect that after 19 years, I would still win. Lan Yunxiao's gaze was calm and indifferent as he looked at Lan Jingquang. From the latter's furious gaze, he could see the intense hatred and unwillingness. He wasn't unfamiliar with this gaze. In fact, he had been looking at Lan Jingquang with this gaze all these years. And now, as he looked at Lan Jingquang in the dungeon, he sighed in his heart. However, he felt even more pleasure. Lan Yunxiao, if I knew this would happen, I would have cut the weeds and eliminated the roots. Hearing Lan Jingquang's words, Lan Yunxiao chuckled. All these years, I also hoped that you would give me a quick death. You were the one who said you would make me beg for death. More than 10 years of torture is far more terrifying than death. I think you're right because you're going to experience that feeling soon. Nan Yunxiao's gaze suddenly turned sinister with a faint ominous glint. I will return to you double what you gave me. If you have the ability, then make a move on me right now. Lan Jingquang spat. If possible, he wanted nothing more than to die right now. This feeling of being humiliated was driving him crazy. Most importantly, the person who was humiliating him was Lan Yunxiao. Don't worry. The torture you deserve will come sooner or later. When I become the Lan family's patriarch, it will be the beginning of your suffering. Lan Yunxiao's usual elegance had long disappeared and was replaced by intense hatred. In the past, it was because he had tolerated Lan Jingquang that his wife and daughter were treated like this. Now, he would not make the same mistake again. In order to face the suffering they had suffered all these years, for the strong hatred in his heart all these years, for his constant desire for revenge, he would attach all of this to Lan Jingquang and Yumanlan. You said I'm cruel, but aren't your methods despicable? Lan Jingquang's eyes reddened. If word of what you've done spreads, do you think they'll still think of you as the elegant Lan Yunxiao? Lan Yunxiao shook his head. You don't need to provoke me. I've absorbed all your experience over the years. I definitely won't have the chance to let you appear before the world again. Tomorrow is the day I take over the position of patriarch. If there is a chance, I will let you witness it with your own eyes. Chapter 28-26. Watching Lan Yunxiao's departing figure, Lan Jingquang sat on the ground as if he had lost all his strength. His eyes were vacant and defeated. Jingquang, what should we do now? Yu Manlan had long been flustered. She had been looking forward to Lan Yunxiao and the others not punishing them for the past few days. A gentleman like Lan Yunxiao might just let them go like this. However, Lan Yunxiao's words today made her realize that it was just her wishful thinking. They didn't deal with them because they didn't have the time. Once the Lan family's matter was settled, their pain would come. Lan Jingquang flung away Yu Manlan's arm that was supporting him. His eyes were bloodshot like an angry lion. You're asking me what to do? There's no other choice but to wait for death. If we can die during this time, it'll be the best outcome. Otherwise, we'll have to spend the rest of our lives like Lan Yunxiao and the others. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly ruthless. She had already crippled their cultivation, leaving them no chance to resist. Right now, they were already in a situation where they could neither live nor die. Yu Manlan shivered and her face turned deathly pale. As the instigator, she knew all too well what kind of torment Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxiao had endured. If all of this happened to her, she definitely wouldn't be able to bear it. No, I don't want that. Yu Manlan sat on the ground and wailed without a care for her image. She was the eldest miss of the Yu family, the madam of the Lan family. But now, the Yu family was gone and they had no status in the Lan family. Why did she let herself become so miserable? Lan Yunxiao walked out of the dungeon and heard the cries. His eyes were still cold and heartless. With a wave of his hand, the sound from the dungeon was completely cut off. Whoever dared to make his wife and daughter suffer for so many years, he would definitely make them regret their actions. The Lan family was currently in full swing, preparing for Lan Yunxiao's conferring ceremony. Compared to the previous ceremony, the Lan family was undoubtedly happier this time. Most importantly, they didn't have to worry about any unforeseen events. With such a new home, everyone was filled with confidence for the Lan family's future. At this moment, the entire Lan family was thriving. It was as if the sky had cleared up after the rain. All the haze from before had disappeared. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others received a message. There were guests. After hearing the servant's announcement, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other with a trace of doubt in their eyes. What kind of guest would come at such a time? When Bailey Hongzhuang and her entourage arrived at the Lan family's door, two familiar figures appeared in their line of sight. Master, mistress. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the two people in front of her in surprise. She did not expect that her master and his wife would come at this time. Hongzhuang. Nangong Wu's face was full of smiles, and she immediately walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Mistress, I didn't expect you to come. This is truly a pleasant surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't conceal the pleasant surprise on her elegant face. She originally thought that her master and mistress would never set foot in the Lan family again. Chapter 28-27. Lin Feng, I didn't expect you to come. Lan Yunxiao looked deeply at Yu Linfeng. Others didn't know what happened back then, but he was very clear about it. The Lan family was probably the place Yu Linfeng didn't want to face the most. Yu Linfeng smiled faintly. I heard that tomorrow is the day you become the head of the Lan family. As a good brother, I naturally came to congratulate you. But I hated the Lan family in the past, but this is your Lan family now, so it's different. With you and Hongzhuang here, I'm afraid I can't avoid dealing with the Lan family in the future. Yu Linfeng's smile was like a spring breeze, and his posture was free and easy. As a good brother, Lan Yunxiao could naturally see that Yu Linfeng wasn't pretending to be free and easy. He was truly indifferent. Thank you, brother. Lan Yunxiao hugged Yu Linfeng. He understood the humiliation Yu Linfeng suffered back then, and Yu Linfeng was willing to let go of this hatred entirely because of him and Hongzhuang. Just this point alone was enough to see Yu Linfeng's sincerity. Hongzhuang, I heard the news when I was at Wuji Palace. I have to say you really did well. Nangong Wu's eyes were filled with excitement. It's a pity I didn't get to see it with my own eyes, but just hearing about it is enough to make me happy. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. That's because grandfather has always supported us. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been easy to go against the entire Lan family. Everyone, quickly come in and take a seat, Mu Lingbing said with a smile. Lan Hongtai and the others were very surprised when they heard that Lan Yunxiao's friend had come. They all walked towards the Lan family's entrance, wanting to know who the guest was. It was just that when Lan Hongtai and the rest saw Yu Linfeng, all of their expressions froze. Although that familiar face had lost its youthfulness and arrogance, they still recognized him at a glance. Junchen? Lan Hongtai looked at Yu Linfeng in astonishment, his eyes filled with astonishment. After Lan Junchen left, he had never seen the former again. He didn't expect to see the former again today. After Yu Linfeng saw Lan Hongtai, his bright eyes dimmed for a moment before returning to normal. However, there was still a sense of alienation on his face. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. It seemed that Yu Linfeng's previous name was Lan Junchen. Lan Borong stared at Lan Junchen in a daze. His usually calm face was now filled with complicated emotions, and his hands were trembling slightly. Junchen, Yu Linfeng's handsome face turned cold. I'm not Junchen, I'm Yu Linfeng. As soon as these words came out, Lan Borong and the others were all stunned. They quickly thought of Yu Linfeng's name in their minds, and their expressions couldn't help but change. Limitless Palace Master, Yu Linfeng? That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the slightly awkward and strange atmosphere in front of her and couldn't help but say, "This is my master." Lan Hongtai and the others still had strange expressions, but they nodded stiffly. So it's Palace Master Yu. I've long heard of your great name. The coldness on Yu Linfeng's face dissipated slightly. His gaze swept past Lan Borong and the others before turning to Lan Yunxiao. Chapter 28-28. Lan Yunxiao led Yu Linfeng and the others to his residence, while Lan Hongtai and the others stopped in their tracks. Watching Yu Linfeng's departing figure, Lan Hongtai and the others looked at each other with unconcealable shock in their eyes. Wuji Palace's palace master is actually Junchen. Lan Hongtai couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. This news was simply too shocking. No wonder Wuji Palace rejected us so bluntly when we expressed our goodwill. So this was the problem. I didn't expect this child's cultivation talent to be so strong. Back then, alas, all the elders sighed and couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Life's fate was truly complicated. They had long heard about the establishment of Wuji Palace and Yu Linfeng's legendary life, but they didn't expect such an outstanding palace master to be a member of their Lan family. Such a talented person had left the Lan family just like that. Speaking of which, they had truly let down this child. Lan Hongtai patted Lan Borong's shoulder and said, "No matter what, it's a good thing to be able to see him again." Lan Borong's expression stiffened. Yu Linfeng's appearance had truly given him too much of a shock. For a moment, he couldn't return to his senses. After regaining his senses, his mood was extremely complicated. There was excitement and guilt. Just like how Lan Hongtai had always felt sorry for Lan Yunxiao's family, the person he, Lan Borong, owed the most in his life was Lan Junchen. After Bailey Hongzhuang walked for a while, she couldn't help but look back at Lan Borong and the others who were still in the same place. If she didn't guess wrong, the person who was related to Master should be the Great Elder. "Master, do you think your Master and First Elder look alike?" Xiaohei asked. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly as Yu Linfeng and Lan Borong's faces appeared in her mind. Her tone was uncertain as she said, "They don't look alike, but if you think about it carefully, they do." Not everyone looked like their parents, but from their silhouettes, one could vaguely see some similarities. "Could it be? We can't say for sure, but we'll know sooner or later," Bailey Hongzhuang said. She didn't know what Yu Linfeng had experienced in the Lan family, but she was certain it wasn't a happy memory. However, if Yu Linfeng was really related to First Elder, then with First's identity and status, he shouldn't let Yu Linfeng suffer. Inside the room, Lan Yunxiao and the others were happily gathered together. They exchanged pleasantries and congratulated each other. After lunch, Lan Borong suddenly came. The moment Lan Borong appeared, Yu Linfeng's face darkened once more. I've come to disturb you. Lan Borong had an awkward smile on his face, but his gaze could not help but fall on Yu Linfeng. Lan's eyes nodded Lan's S's. Lan Yunxiao nodded. He wasn't surprised by Lan Borong's appearance. Nangong Wu also looked at Lan Borong in confusion. She had some understanding of Lan Yunxiao's past, but now it seemed she only knew a part of it. At the very least, everyone present could see the special relationship between Lan Borong and Lan Yunxiao. Then let's go out first, Lan Yunxiao said. Chapter 28-29. However, Yu Linfeng coldly said, I have nothing to say to you. As soon as these words came out, Lan Borong's expression couldn't help but stiffen, and the awkwardness and stiffness on his face became even more intense. Junchen, my name is Yu Linfeng. I'm afraid head elder has mistaken me for someone else? Yu Linfeng coldly said. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but stop in their tracks, their eyes turning to Lan Yunxiao. Lan Yunxiao nodded at everyone, indicating that they should leave together. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others no longer hesitated and walked out of the house, leaving space for Lan Borong. After leaving the room, Nangong Wu frowned and asked, What's the relationship between Linfeng and your Lan family's head elder? It seems like there are many things that I don't know. You don't know either? Lan Yunxiao was a little surprised, but the sigh in his eyes deepened. It seemed like the knot in Yu Linfeng's heart was deeper than he had imagined. I only know that the Lan family suspects Linfeng's bloodline and everyone ostracizes him, saying that he's not a member of the Lan family. That's why he left the Lan family. Isn't that the case? Nangong Wu's expression revealed some worry. This was the answer that Yu Linfeng had given her when she asked Yu Linfeng. Could it be that Yu Linfeng didn't tell her the truth? Lan Yunxiao nodded. You're right. That's how it is, but it's a little more complicated. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but look at each other. They finally understood why Yu Linfeng loathed the Lan family so much. Suspecting his bloodline meant suspecting Yu Linfeng's identity and even questioning Yu Linfeng's parents. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't be able to accept it. Yunxiao, tell me everything in detail. I don't want Linfeng to always keep this matter in his heart. At least after knowing it, I can help him resolve some of it. Nangong Wu pleaded with Lan Yunxiao. All these years, Yu Linfeng had been tight-lipped about this matter. Because she didn't know enough about this matter, she couldn't say anything to comfort him. In fact, she had always known that Yu Linfeng did not want to hide it from her, but it was too difficult to say. Since they were already at the Lan family, it was naturally impossible to continue hiding this matter. It was better to understand it as soon as possible. She also wanted to help Yu Linfeng untie the knot in his heart. For such a long time, Yu Linfeng had never been truly happy because of this matter. She hoped that Yu Linfeng could be truly happy. Opening up the knot in his heart was the only way. Hearing Nangong Wu's words, a trace of hesitation flashed across Lan Yunxiao's face. He had never spoken of this matter because he didn't want to divulge Yu Linfeng's privacy. After all, this matter was Yu Linfeng's own matter, so it wasn't appropriate for him to speak of it. But since Linfeng isn't willing to speak of it, he probably doesn't want this matter to be known by others. If this makes Linfeng unhappy, I'm afraid the gains won't make up for the losses. According to his temperament, I'm afraid he won't speak of it for the rest of his life. However, he simply can't truly let go of it. Recently, his cultivation hasn't been able to increase due to this knot in his heart. I feel that he also wants to untie this knot in his heart. This visit to the Lan family is the best proof, Nangong Wu slowly said. Chapter 28-30. Hearing Nangong Wu's words, everyone fell into silence. Bailey Hongzhuang could see Lan Yunxiao's entanglement. In fact, they didn't have much desire to know about this secret. What they wanted more was for Yu Linfeng to be happy. Yunxiao, Nangong Wu's words are reasonable. Why don't you tell her about this matter? Mu Lingbing couldn't help but speak up. As a woman, she understood Nangong Wu's feelings. We are all Linfeng's closest people. No matter which of us knows, we won't hurt Linfeng. You don't need to have any misgivings. Just tell me. Nangong Wu's face flickered with a resolute light as she spoke. After a moment of silence, the hesitation on Lan Yunxiao's face gradually disappeared and he nodded. All right. Seeing that Lan Yunxiao finally agreed, Nangong Wu breathed a sigh of relief. However, Lan Yunxiao's following words caused Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to fall into deep astonishment. Actually, Lin Feng is the first elder's son. This simple sentence caused everyone to fall into shock. At this moment, everyone finally understood why the aura between Yu Linfeng and Lan Borong was so strange when they met. Master, it seems that our guess wasn't wrong. Xiao He couldn't help but speak up. Bailey Hongzhuang was astonished. She had never expected the first elder to be Master's father. It was truly too shocking. Speaking of this matter, the first elder is also at fault. There is a reason why Lin Feng hates him so much. Following Lan Yunxiao's unhurried narration, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also understood what had happened. It turned out that the person Lan Borong admired was Yu Linfeng's mother, Chu Xia. However, the Lan family wanted to form a marriage alliance with another family, the Wu family, and the person chosen was Lan Borong. Due to the pressure at that time, Lan Borong was an extremely responsible person for his family, so he chose to agree and let Yu Linfeng's mother down. Lan Borong's wife, Wu Yenrong, had a very strong background, so she was usually very fierce. Back then, she had taken a fancy to Lan Borong, so she insisted on marrying him. Although Lan Borong married Wu Yenrong, he only had Chu Xia in his heart, so he treated Wu Yenrong with respect. Gradually, Wu Yenrong discovered the relationship between Lan Borong and Chu Xia. Therefore, she often made things difficult for Chu Xia. Chu Xia also couldn't let go of Lan Borong, so she never got married. Back then, Lan Hongtai had suggested that Lan Borong marry Chu Xia as well. This way, he wouldn't let her down. This was undoubtedly good news for both Lan Borong and Chu Xia. However, Wu Yenrong had an unyielding personality. After learning about this matter, she strongly opposed it and even used the entire Wu clan to suppress this matter. Thus, this matter could only be left unsettled. 3 years later, because Wu Yenrong hadn't given birth to a child, everyone found out that she was infertile. At that time, Lan Borong once again proposed to marry Chu Xia, but Wu Yenrong still refused. Because of this, although they were very unhappy, they could only suppress this matter. During this helpless process, Chu Xia suddenly became pregnant. Chapter 2831. After knowing this, Wu Yenrong became extremely crazy and treated Chu Xia even more harshly and excessively. Lan Borong protected Chu Xia many times, but Wu Yenrong always took advantage of Lan Borong's absence to torture Chu Xia. In desperation, Lan Borong could only let Chu Xia temporarily stay at her good friend's house until Chu Xia gave birth and returned to the family. In fact, Lan Borong was not a person who could not protect his wife and child, but at that time, the Lan family was also in a crisis and needed the help of the Wu family, so Lan Borong could only do this. However, after Chu Xia returned to the Lan family, because Lan Borong could not give Chu Xia a status, Chu Xia's daily life was very bad. After Wu Yenrong found out that Chu Xia gave birth to a son for Lan Borong, she felt more and more indignant. She constantly slandered Chu Xia and drove Chu Xia out of the main branch mansion to live in the branch mansion. She even said that Yu Linfeng was an unknown bastard. The branch descendants were not clear about Yu Linfeng's situation, and in addition to Wu Yenrong's daily slander, everyone's expression when they saw Yu Linfeng was naturally different from before. Therefore, Yu Linfeng lived under such pressure since he was young. Inexplicably bearing such a bad name, Chu Xia was also depressed. Her originally weak body had been depressed for a long time. In the end, when Yu Linfeng was 10 years old, she passed away from this world. With Chu Xia's death, Yu Linfeng's situation was also difficult, and he had to bear the ridicule and ostracization of all the descendants. When Chu Xia died, Lan Borong was not in the Lan family. He was sent out and only returned 3 years later. At that time, Yu Linfeng could not bear the pressure of the family and had already left. Over the years, Lan Borong had also been looking for Yu Linfeng's whereabouts, but Yu Linfeng, who had left, seemed to have disappeared without a trace. No matter how much they asked, there was no trace of his whereabouts. After Lan Borong returned and found out that Yu Linfeng had left, he was furious and taught Wu Yenrong a lesson, but it was useless. A few years later, Wu Yenrong also died of illness, and Lan Borong did not marry again. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others understood the situation, they fell into silence. They didn't expect the story to be so complicated. Even though Lan Yunxiao only mentioned it briefly, they could understand how seriously Yu Linfeng had been bullied in the Lan family. Bearing the name of an illegitimate child, and being suspected by others that he was not Lan Borong's child, this feeling was undoubtedly extremely painful. What's more, in Yu Linfeng's opinion, Lan Borong didn't care about him and Chu Xia at all, so it was understandable that he hated Lan Borong so much. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't want to have anything to do with such a cruel family. I see. Nangong Wu lowered her voice. She finally understood why Yu Linfeng didn't tell her the truth. Illegitimate child. Just this title alone was enough to make Yu Linfeng unwilling to talk about it. Bailey Hongzhuang was very clear about the feeling Yu Linfeng had to endure. But when she thought about how she was also bullied in the general's estate, those days were truly unbearable. Chapter 28-32. Mu Lingbing's expression was somewhat helpless. She had originally thought that it was just a misunderstanding, but she hadn't expected the process to be so complicated. With Yu Linfeng's arrogance, it was really too difficult to get him to forgive her. Nangong Wu's expression was also complicated. In that case, not only did head elder let Chu Xia down, he also didn't fulfill his duty to Linfeng. Lan Yunxiao sighed. Whether it's the house head or the elders, they all sacrificed for the family. From the Lan family's point of view, head elder has undoubtedly made great contributions to the family and is worthy of our respect. However, from Linfeng's point of view, head elder really didn't fulfill his duty as a father. In fact, it's been too late for head elder to regret his actions all these years. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching exchanged glances. They didn't have any right to speak on this matter. They understood that it was normal for an elder to make sacrifices for the family. Although it was hard to accept from Yu Linfeng's point of view, it wasn't uncommon in many families. Then what should we do now? Nangong Wu was helpless. She originally wanted to help Yu Linfeng untie this knot in his heart, but after understanding the entire situation, she realized she didn't know where to start. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. For a moment, no one could give Nangong Wu a definite answer. This feeling was similar to asking Bailey Hongzhuang to forgive Bailey Yin. It wasn't an easy thing to do. Mental illness needs to be treated with mental medicine. We can't help much in this matter, but head elder is very remorseful. Perhaps after the father and son talk, the situation will develop for the better. Lan Yunxiao's eyes flickered with the light of wisdom as he spoke with a faint tone of comfort. Ever since he returned to the Lan family, some of the knots in his heart had gradually been untied. Thus, he understood that only by letting go of everything would he be happier. Although Lan Borong had let down Chu Xia and Yu Linfeng, he had no choice but to do so. In fact, Lan Borong had suffered no less than Yu Linfeng over the years. Do you think the first elder is really worthy of forgiveness? At this moment, Nangong Wu's words made Bailey Hongzhuang and the others fall into a state of shock. What's the difference between his actions and abandoning his wife and children? Yu Linfeng's mother was devoted to him, but because of him, she was wronged and died of depression. Since he was young, Yu Linfeng had endured too many things that he shouldn't have. Speaking of which, they are the most innocent. Although Lan Borong has contributed to the family, isn't he doing this for his own vanity? Nangong Wu's eyes flickered with confusion. After knowing everything, she felt even more heartache for Yu Linfeng and her impression of the first elder worsened. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but sigh. It was hard to say who was right and who was wrong. They only understood it from different angles. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly spoke. Mistress, do you think Master has let go of this matter all these years? Nangong Wu shook her head. She didn't understand the meaning behind Bailey Hongzhuang's sudden question. Actually, the reason Master hates the first elder so much is mostly because of love. Chapter 28-33. With Master's current status and experience, even if he didn't understand the reason for First Elder's actions when he was young, after he became the Palace Master of Limitless Palace, he should be well aware of the situation. The reason why Master couldn't let it go wasn't only because of the pain he suffered as a child, but also because First Elder let his mother down. This was something he couldn't forgive. But no matter what, First Elder is still his biological father. As a child, how could he forget his own father? With Master's mother's personality and experience, she would never say anything bad about the other elders. Even when she mentioned First Elder, she would be extremely gentle. Thus, it's easy to imagine Master's thoughts. Familial love is the most difficult thing to give up. This point can be seen from Master's expression when he saw First Elder. If he truly let it go or ignored it, Yulin Feng wouldn't be so angry. It was because he still cared for Lan Borong that he revealed such emotions. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's face revealed a trace of understanding. Nangong Wu was silent for a moment, but her gaze towards Bailey Hongzhuang became increasingly gentle. Hongzhuang, you're right. We can hate anyone, but we can never hate our closest kin. The complicated atmosphere in the room instantly warmed up a little. Everyone knew what they were going to do next. If they could help Yulin Feng and Lan Borong restore their father-son relationship, it would be a great contribution. Master, First Elder has already left. Xiao He slowly ran in from outside. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang was worried that Yulin Feng and Lan Borong would have a huge conflict, so she had Xiao He stand guard outside the room. Everyone was well aware of Xiao He's ability to change its size. It was the most suitable person to stand guard. How's the situation? Lan Yunxiao asked. Xiao He shook its head. The situation shouldn't be too good. I only saw First Elder dejectedly leave. The pain on his face was too obvious. Everyone's heart sank, but they didn't care too much. After all, this situation was within their expectations. No matter what, First Elder and Yulin Feng being able to meet is already an extremely good thing. As for how to resolve this conflict, I'm afraid it won't be resolved in a short time. When Mu Lingbing said this, her gaze landed on Nangong Wu. Among them, Nangong Wu was the one who was most concerned about this matter. Nangong Wu nodded. Sincerity can move metal and stone. If the First Elder really wants to win back Lin Feng's heart, he won't give up so easily. Everyone smiled at each other and reached a consensus. Not long after, Yulin Feng arrived. Everyone adjusted their expressions to prevent Yulin Feng from noticing anything amiss. When Yulin Feng returned, his expression was somewhat gloomy. But after seeing everyone, his expression quickly returned to normal. Everyone tacitly agreed not to ask about the results of Yulin Feng and First Elder's discussion. Instead, they talked about how Lan Yunxiao and the rest had returned to the Lan family. They were very happy. Chapter 2834. I didn't expect Yulin Feng to be Lan Junshin. It's too hard to believe. All these years, we couldn't find any trace of Junshin. It turns out he changed his name to Yulin Feng and became such an extraordinary person. Head Elder, you have a good son. Elder 4 looked at Lan Borong. His words were not meant to be sarcastic. He simply felt proud that Lan Junshin could achieve such a result. However, when the First Elder heard this, he felt extremely bitter in his heart. He also felt proud of Yulin Feng's achievements, but more than that, he felt guilty. He didn't care how great his son's achievements were. He only hoped that Yulin Feng could forgive him, even though he knew very well that he didn't have the right to be forgiven for what he had done. Lan Hongtai looked at Lan Borong's dispirited appearance, and his eyes immediately revealed a bit of complicated emotions. All these years, he and Lan Borong had been as close as brothers. Just like how he couldn't let go of Lan Yunxiao, Lan Borong couldn't let go of Lan Junshin either. Now that Lan Yunxiao had returned safely, he could put down all his worries. However, Lan Borong's matter would be even more difficult to deal with. Head Elder, you only did that for the sake of the Lan family. Speaking of which, we've let you down, Lan Hongtai said. As Lan Hongtai's voice fell, the elders nodded one after another, their faces filled with guilt. That's right, Head Elder. You only did that for the family. Speaking of which, you're not the only one who owes Junshin. All of us owe Junshin, Their guilt towards Lan Junshin was no less than their guilt towards Lan Yunxiao. They all knew that Lan Junshin was head elder's son, but they hadn't been able to take good care of him when head elder wasn't in the Lan family. In fact, they had done their best to take care of him, but they were helpless against the harm caused by some rumors. Head elder shook his head. Everything I did for the family was of my own volition. There's no need for everyone to feel guilty. Speaking of which, I've let Chuxia and Junshin down. I should bear all of this. No matter how much time it takes, even if it costs me my life, I will find a way to get Junshin's forgiveness. Lan Junshin was his only son in this world. As for Chuxia, he could only wait until he went to hell to confess to her. Listening to the first elder's words, Lan Hongtai and the other elders sighed. Regarding this matter, they really couldn't help much. They could only pray that Lan Junshin would forgive the first elder. After all, the first elder didn't have it easy these years. Lan Hongtai patted the first elder's shoulder and said, "Bo Rong, I believe your wish will come true, just like when I met Yun Xiao." Lan Borong nodded and looked into the distance. "I hope so." The next day, the sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly. Early in the morning, the Lan family was already filled with gongs, drums, and firecrackers. Everywhere was filled with a festive atmosphere. Bailey Hongzhuang woke up early in the morning. Today was the day Lan Yunxiao would be conferred the title of family head. Chapter 28:35. Father is finally going to become the head of the Lan family. Although it's late by 19 years, this scene is still delightful. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but smile at the fiery red festive scene. Mu Lingbing held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and nodded with a smile. Tears of joy flickered in her eyes. "That's right. I never thought that I would be able to see this again after so many years. Speaking of which, your father and I are all thanks to you, my precious daughter. Otherwise, how could we see the light of day again? It's all thanks to your good looks." Bailey Hongzhuang covered her mouth and chuckled. Although the Central Plaza had suffered great damage, with the Lan family's ability, they were able to restore it to its original state in a short period of time. Today's appointment ceremony was still held in the Central Plaza. Early in the morning, the entire Blue Sun City was bustling with noise and excitement. When Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, and Mo Yunjue arrived at the Central Plaza, the gazes the clansmen of Blue Sun City looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with were no longer cold and indifferent. Instead, they were filled with intimacy and joy. Situ Yen and Mu Jins were also warmly welcomed by everyone. Now, everyone in the Lan family knew that the Lan family, Tiangang sect, and Sun Moon Palace were connected by marriage. This caused the Lan family's status to rise. Now, everyone could be said to be on the same side. Ouyang Heng and Ouyang Etienne of the Ouyang family once again came to the Lan family to congratulate them on the appointment ceremony. "Master Yun, congratulations. You're about to become the head of the Lan family. I hope we can get along well in the future." Ouyang Heng's face was full of smiles. His words were filled with flattery towards Lan Yunxiao, and he didn't mention anything about what had happened in the past. Looking at Ouyang Heng, Lan Yunxiao's eyes flashed. He smiled and said, "Of course. Our Lan family has always had a good relationship with the Ouyang family. I hope this relationship can continue in the future." Hearing this, Ouyang Heng's smile became more pleasantly surprised. He repeatedly said, "Of course, of course." Now, the Lan family's status had risen. With the Tiangang sect, the Sun Moon Palace, and even the Limitless Palace, these three major sects, many forces wanted to have a relationship with the Lan family. Ouyang Heng was originally worried that Lan Yunxiao would hold a grudge against him because of his friendship with Lan Jingquang in the past. If he alienated the Ouyang clan because of this, it would be a great loss to their clan. Fortunately, Lan Yunxiao didn't care about this matter and even gave him a heart-calming pill. Only then did he feel completely at ease, and his favorable impression of Lan Yunxiao deepened. Perhaps it was because Lan Yunxiao had a breadth of mind that Lan Jingquang didn't, which was why the Lan family's reputation was so high. "Ouyang family head, please take a seat." Lan Yunxiao's voice was warm, and his attitude was cordial. The Ouyang clan and the Lan clan had become friends after he left the Lan clan. Speaking of which, There was no conflict between him and Ouyang Heng, so he didn't mind doing him a favor. Ouyang Heng sat down with a smile on his face. Ouyang Etian followed behind Ouyang Heng and watched all the changes. He was also amazed. Chapter 28:36. Most importantly, according to Ouyang Heng, their Ouyang clan no longer had the right to marry into the Lan clan. Fortunately, he hadn't married Lan Qinyan, or their Ouyang clan would be in an extremely awkward position. If there was still a chance, he would admire Bailey Hongzhuang even more. However, he was clear that he couldn't be compared to Bewitching. Although Lan Yunxiao didn't invite many factions to his conferring ceremony, it was still a grand occasion. Tiangang Sect, Sun Moon Palace, Limitless Palace, Slaughter Heaven Pavilion, and the Ouyang clan. Just the presence of the leaders of these 5 factions was far superior to the conferring ceremonies of other aristocratic families. Lan Yunxiao even reserved a special seat for Lan Jingquang in the central plaza. The struggle between the two brothers for so many years would come to an end today. When Lan Jingquang appeared in front of the crowd as a prisoner, everyone couldn't help but sigh. It had only been 10 days, but Lan Jingquang looked as if he had aged 10 years. Only the unruly and resentful look in his eyes remained. Lan Jingquang's expression was extremely unsightly. He would rather die than let others see his unbearable side. Thinking back to the past several decades, when had he ever been in such a situation that he couldn't control? Everyone's attention was only attracted by Lan Jingquang for a moment before it shifted to Lan Yunxiao. Lan Yunxiao's figure was thin and tall, slender and noble. The blue brocade robe he wore made him look handsome, confident, and graceful. He was spirited and handsome with a gentle smile. There wasn't the slightest trace of a biting cold aura around him. On the contrary, he was calm and collected with an indifferent and distant temperament. Lan Yunxiao slowly walked over like a dazzling piece of warm jade, making everyone feel the warmth of a spring breeze. For a moment, no one could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Master Yun is here. Master Yun is truly handsome and confident. Just looking at him makes one feel calm and approachable. That's right. Master Yun is famous for his good temper. He doesn't put on airs at all. Isn't our second miss as close to us as Master Yun? Joyful smiles appeared on the faces of the Lan clan's clansmen. In the past, when Lan Jingquang was present, everyone felt a kind of pressure. But in front of Lan Yunxiao, everyone felt that he was their family, their true spiritual leader. Lan Yunxiao's gaze silently landed on Lan Jingquang. Lan Jingquang's eyes were red as he glared at Lan Yunxiao. To him, such humiliation was no different from death by 1,000 cuts. He really wanted to disrupt the ceremony, but Bailey Hongzhuang had already sealed his mouth, so he couldn't even make a sound. He could only stare helplessly. An elegant smile quietly appeared on Lan Yunxiao's lips. Lan Jingquang's fury was an excellent congratulatory gift to him. Lan Hongtai stood on the high platform with a face full of smiles as he watched Lan Yunxiao slowly walk over. The warmth and joy in his eyes couldn't be more obvious. Today is the day my Lan family will hand over the position of patriarch. Thank you for coming, Sect Master of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Palace Master of Sun Moon Palace, Palace Master and Madam of Wuji Palace, Young Master of Heaven Slaughter Pavilion, and Patriarch of Ouyang. With these words, everyone's gaze landed on Sidu Yen and the others. Chapter 28:37. Lan Jingquang's gaze swept over Sidu Yen and the others. When he saw Yu Linfeng, he couldn't help but be shocked. Disbelief flashed through his eyes. Lan Junchen? Why is Lan Junchen here? This thought kept popping up in Lan Jingquang's mind, but when he heard Lan Hongtai call Lan Junchen the Palace Master of Wuji Palace, he was completely dumbfounded. Wasn't the Palace Master of Wuji Palace Yu Linfeng? He clearly remembered that back then, because Lan Yunxiao had always protected Lan Junchen, he had secretly hindered Lan Junchen quite a few times. Although Lan Junchen's existence wasn't a threat to him, he had been suppressed by Lan Yunxiao since he was young. His heart was filled with unwillingness, so he found Lan Junchen to vent his anger. However, Lan Junchen was a person with a backbone. Even when Lan Jingquang had secretly bullied him, he had never told Lan Yunxiao about it. In the end, The reason Lan Junshin was forced to leave the Lan family was largely because of him. He thought Lan Junshin had died long ago. He didn't expect to see him again today. Just as Lan Jingquang was sizing up Yu Linfeng in bewilderment, Yu Linfeng's ruthless gaze landed on Lan Jingquang. Everything Lan Jingquang had done to him back then was still vivid in his mind. It was an unforgettable memory. When their gazes met, Lan Jingquang's heart couldn't help but tremble. It really was him. At this moment, he suddenly understood why Bailey Hongzhuang would become the young palace master of Wuji Palace. It was all because of Lan Junshin. In other words, long before Lan Yunxiao returned to the Lan family, Lan Junshin had already met with Lan Yunxiao. The two of them had planned all of this. Thud thud. Lan Jingquang couldn't help but take 2 steps back. His face was ashen and extremely unsightly. Yu Linfeng didn't withdraw his gaze. His hatred for Lan Jingquang couldn't be described in a few words. But now that he saw Lan Jingquang in such a state, he felt somewhat gratified. 30 years to the west, 30 years to the east. This change was really interesting. Nangong Wu naturally noticed Yu Linfeng's gaze. She couldn't help but look at Lan Jingquang. It seemed like there was something she didn't know about. The position of house head should have been passed to Lan Yunxiao more than a decade ago, but many accidents happened. Fortunately, he was able to complete it after more than a decade. Lan Hongtai smiled. Hearing Lan Hongtai's words, the Lan clansmen were filled with emotions, but more than that, they were overjoyed. Next, old family head, please pass the seal to the new family head, Lan Yunxiao. With a face full of smiles, Lan Hongtai handed the seal to Lan Yunxiao. Lan Yunxiao raised his hands over his head and smoothly received it. Congratulations to the new patriarch. Congratulations to the new patriarch. The clansmen of the Lan family all saluted and shouted. The deafening sound of joy spread throughout the entire Lan family. Lan Yunxiao's face turned green when he saw this scene. It was extremely unsightly. His years of effort and meticulous planning were all for naught in the end. Without waiting for him to stay, the people who detained him sent him back to the prison. He had already seen what he needed to see. The following celebration had nothing to do with him. Chapter 28:38. Just as everyone in the Lan family was immersed in this joy, Yu Linfeng actually made a trip to the dungeon. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others found out that Yu Linfeng was going to visit Lan Jingquang, they were surprised. Only Lan Yunxiao nodded in understanding. Inside the dungeon, Lan Jingquang looked at Yu Linfeng, who had suddenly appeared, and his face turned gloomy. Lan Junshin, I didn't expect you to still be alive. Yu Manlan looked at the unfamiliar face in front of her and couldn't help but be surprised. She had never seen Lan Junshin before. However, whether it was Yu Linfeng or Lan Jingquang, they didn't care about Yu Manlan. They just looked at each other, and it was as if they had returned to the past. I've disappointed you. The corner of Yu Linfeng's mouth held a trace of a smile. I didn't think that the usually arrogant you would also fall to such a state. So what if I've ended up like this? Lan Jingquang's expression was filled with unwillingness and madness. What right does a bastard like you have to laugh at me? Until now, I'm afraid you still don't know who your father is. How pitiful. When he said this, Yu Linfeng's eyes darkened. Back then, you used this matter to ostracize me. Does it matter what my identity is? It's better than you plotting for so many years, but in the end, it's all for naught. Lan Jingquang, who thought he was unparalleled in intelligence, ended up as a prisoner abandoned by everyone. I'm really happy to be able to enjoy this scene. Lan Jingquang punched the dungeon door. I don't know what methods you used to become the palace master of Limitless Palace, but don't forget, you're still a pitiful worm in the Lan family that no one wants. I'm curious, why did you come back to the Lan family? Don't tell me you miss your father, who you don't even know if he is. Lan Jingquang, you're really a pitiful worm. Do you want to know why Hongzhuang still has a rainbow pearl in her body? As Yu Linfeng's voice fell, Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan's gazes locked onto Yu Linfeng. They asked nervously, what do you mean? You think that you're smart and talented, but you don't know that you can't compare to anyone. The 7-colored divine pearl is mine. The thing that you want is the thing that I want to throw away. Back then, I didn't fight for it because I didn't want it. If I really wanted to fight for it, even if you're the son of the patriarch, what does it matter? As soon as he finished speaking, Lan Jingquang was completely dumbfounded. He stared at Yu Linfeng with disbelief written all over his face. Impossible. That's impossible. Yu Linfeng chuckled. If you don't want to believe it, then continue to deceive yourself. Back then, no matter if it was Yun Xiao or I, we weren't willing to fight for all of this, but you just had to drag everyone in. In the end, the worst person is you. Lan Jingquang's expression froze, and his body uncontrollably turned cold. Was it really like this? Lan Hongtai had said the same thing to him before. Was he really the one who was obsessed with going about things the wrong way all this time? Yu Linfeng ignored Lan Jingquang and directly opened the dungeon door. His gaze was cold and ruthless. I came here today to return the humiliation you gave me back then. Chapter 2839. Whether it was Yu Linfeng and Lan Jingquang who were talking, or Yu Manlan, who was dumbfounded, they didn't notice that there was another figure outside the dungeon. After that figure heard what Yu Linfeng said, he couldn't help but tighten his grip on the dungeon door. His entire body couldn't help but tremble. When Lan Barong saw Yu Linfeng go to the dungeon, he couldn't help but follow him. Although Yu Linfeng's attitude towards him was very bad, as long as he had the chance to talk to Yu Linfeng, he would look forward to it. However, he didn't expect to hear such a story after coming to the dungeon. He never knew that Lan Jingquang had been bullying Yu Linfeng in the past. What he didn't know was that Yu Linfeng had the rainbow pearl in his body. If he had known, many things wouldn't have happened. What made him sigh was that Yu Linfeng had known about this long ago, but he hadn't said anything. It must be because he hated him to the core. If the rainbow pearl in Bailey Hongzhuang's body belonged to Yu Linfeng, then how much did he hate the Lan family to the point that he didn't even want an existence like the rainbow pearl? Lan Borong was shocked. He owed Yu Linfeng to the extreme. He never knew that his son was so outstanding, and he had never given Yu Linfeng any care. Now that he wanted to ask for forgiveness, what right did he have? Bang, bang, bang. In the dungeon, a series of sounds came out. Yu Linfeng didn't show any mercy. Although so many years had passed, the shame from back then was still strong in his heart. Lan Jingquang's cultivation had been destroyed, and he was already an ordinary person. How could he withstand Yu Linfeng's attacks? In a short time, Lan Jingquang was beaten to a pulp by Yu Linfeng. Blood kept flowing from the corner of his mouth. He was in an extremely sorry state. When Yu Manlan saw this, a look of panic appeared on her face. She hurriedly said, "What are you doing? You will kill him if you do that." Yu Linfeng glanced at Yu Manlan indifferently. When Yu Manlan saw the ferocity and murderous intent in Yu Linfeng's eyes, she couldn't help but gasp. Her face turned pale, and a chill rose from the soles of her feet. "Yu Manlan, although you're not a good person, I don't want to make a move on you. So, while I'm still talking, you'd better scram as far as you can. If you dare to say another word, do you believe that I will make your death even more miserable?" Yu Linfeng's cold and arrogant voice was filled with murderous intent. He grabbed Yu Manlan's chin with one hand and lifted her up. After seeing her increasingly pale face, he ruthlessly threw her to the other side of the prison. Pa! Yu Manlan's body was ruthlessly thrown against the wall, and she slid down from the wall to the ground. She looked at Yu Linfeng, who was like a demon in front of her, in fear. Her body couldn't help but tremble. Lan Jingquang's mouth was full of bloody foam, but he revealed a smile. He looked at Yu Linfeng and said, "Kill me if you can." Yu Linfeng ruthlessly stepped on Lan Jingquang's body and said, "It's not that easy for you to die. After doing so many bad things, you must be tortured well." Chapter 2840. Hearing Yu Linfeng's words, the light in Lan Jingquang's eyes instantly extinguished. He originally wanted to use this chance to end himself. Once he fell into Lan Yunxiao's hands, he would suffer a fate worse than death. But it was clear that Yu Linfeng wouldn't grant him his wish. Yu Linfeng looked at Lan Jingquang, who was lying on the ground like a stray dog. The resentment in his heart gradually dissipated. In the end, his gaze landed on Lan Jingquang's hand. "Back then, every time you attacked me, I thought to myself that one day, I would cripple that hand of yours. Lan Jingquang couldn't help but be startled. His pupils constricted. Even the crazed him couldn't help but feel a trace of fear. However, the hope in Lan Jingquang's heart was of no use. Yu Linfeng was already in front of him in the next second and ruthlessly stomped down on his right hand. Crack! The crisp sound of bones breaking rang out, followed by Lan Jingquang's miserable shriek. Yu Linfeng showed no mercy and completely crippled his right hand. Yu Linfeng, you'll die a horrible death. Lan Jingquang's eyes were bloodshot and his veins bulged as he crazily screamed. Yu Linfeng sneered. I still don't know what will happen to me, but I do know that you'll definitely die a horrible death. Yu Manlan sat on the ground in a daze. She had long forgotten how to react as she watched this scene. All that was left was her unending tears. Enjoy your last moment. Once you leave the Lan family, you'll truly be in complete darkness. Yu Linfeng left behind these words and turned to leave the dungeon. Following Yu Linfeng's departure, Lan Jingquang blankly lay on the ground. Fresh blood continuously flowed from his wounds. His entire body was in immense pain, but none of this pain could compare to the pain in his heart. Staring at the ceiling, he never thought that he would fall into such a situation. His days as a stray dog were simply worse than death. His cultivation had already been crippled, and now his hand was crippled. If this continued, he was afraid that he would go crazy. Lan Borong had remained outside the prison the entire time, paying attention to everything that was happening inside. When he saw Yu Linfeng emerge, he hurriedly hid himself. Only after Yu Linfeng left did he reappear. The next second, Lan Borong also walked into the dungeon. Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief, but when they heard footsteps coming from the dungeon, they couldn't help but feel nervous. But when they saw that it was Lan Borong, they let out a sigh of relief. So it's the Great Elder. What are you doing here? Lan Jingquang was the first to speak. Lan Junshin did such a thing to me just now. Hurry and help me report this to the head of the family. Lan Jingquang still had some hope in his heart. Even though what he did back then was too much in Lan Hongtai's eyes, he was still Lan Hongtai's son. He believed that if Lan Hongtai saw his miserable appearance now, he might take pity on him and let him live. However, Lan Borong's gaze was extremely cold. Seeing that Lan Borong didn't speak, Lan Jingquang couldn't help but frown. Didn't you hear what I said? Chapter 2841. Hearing this, Lan Jingquang was taken aback. What do you mean? Nothing. Lan Borong's head drooped slightly, causing Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan to be unable to see his eyes. When he raised his head again, his eyes were filled with disgust. I just want to fulfill my responsibility as a father. Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan couldn't help but look at each other. They really didn't understand the meaning of Lan Borong's words. However, in the next second, Lan Jingquang already understood. Bang! Lan Borong ruthlessly kicked Lan Jingquang to the wall, causing him to spit out another mouthful of blood. This child is already pitiful enough, but you still have to do such an excessive thing to him. I originally thought that the reason why you treated Yunxiao like that was because you were suppressed by Yunxiao all year round. The imbalance in your heart caused you to go crazy and do crazy things. But now it seems that you are a despicable person with a vicious heart. If I had known this earlier, I would have taken your life long ago. First Elder, you're crazy. Yu Manlan looked at Lan Borong in disbelief. She had known the First Elder for so many years, but she had never seen him do such an unreasonable thing. I'm not crazy. In the past, I was really crazy when I tolerated you. Now, I've truly returned to normal. Lan Borong coldly said. After being inexplicably beaten by the First Elder, Lan Jingquang's expression was extremely unsightly. First Elder, the entire family knows that you didn't care about Lan Junshin at that time. What's the point of doing this now? Could it be that you think Lan Junshin will forgive you if you do this now? Stop dreaming. Do you know? Lan Junshin even took out the 7-colored sacred pearl from his body because he hated you, his father. Following Lan Jingquang's words, Lan Borong's expression became even more unsightly. This was the pain in his heart. He didn't care whether Lan Junshin was outstanding or not. What he cared about was that Lan Junshin was his son. However, he couldn't protect his son, which was the biggest regret in his life. I don't care if he forgives me or not, but at least now I want to do my duty as a father. The debt he owed Lan Junshin could never be repaid in this lifetime, but at least within the scope of what he could do, he still wanted to do something. He was wrong. When Lan Junshin was bullied in the past, he should have sheltered him from the wind and rain as a father. Although it was late for so many years, it was still what he wanted to do. Another crisp sound of bones breaking rang out. Lan Borong did not show any mercy when he attacked, and his gaze was even colder and more emotionless. It's time for you to pay back the excessive actions you did to Junshin. Lan Jingquang screamed crazily. He had just lost his right arm, and now his left arm was crippled by Lan Borong. Are you crazy? The patriarch will never allow you to do that. Lan Jing screamed crazily. The pain from his arms almost made him faint. His face was extremely pale. Lan Borong coldly glanced at Lan Jingquang. You forgot that the new patriarch is Lan Yunxiao. I believe he won't stop me. Lan Jingquang couldn't help but be startled by Lan Borong's words, and his entire person became dispirited. Chapter 2842. By the time Lan Borong left the dungeon, Lan Jingquang had already fainted. After losing his cultivation, he had become an ordinary person. Now that both his arms had been broken, the pain wasn't something an ordinary person could endure. Yu Manlan looked at Lan Jingquang and fell into a daze. She didn't know what to do. Even though she had already expected that their situation would be very tragic, when this scene really happened, she still felt shocked. She was a little hysterical and scared to the extreme. When Lan Yunxiao and Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at the dungeon, they saw this scene. Lan Jingquang was covered in blood, and Yu Manlan was crying on the side. Bailey Hongzhuang originally didn't know why Yu Linfeng had come to the dungeon. When she and Lan Yunxiao arrived, they saw Yu Linfeng leave head elder and enter the dungeon. The two of them stayed outside for a while and understood everything. Looking at the unconscious Lan Jingquang in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt that he deserved it. She didn't think that not only did Lan Jingquang treat her father like this, even her master had been humiliated by Lan Jingquang. When Yu Manlan saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Yunxiao, she was first stunned and then panicked. Lan Junshin and head elder have already come to teach him a lesson. Why are you still here? Could it be that you want to torture him to death? However, both Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Yunxiao couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Yu Manlan. I didn't expect Lan Jingquang to be so hateful. It's only right to cripple his arms, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a frown. Lin Feng has always been in head elder's heart. If Lin Feng knew about this, he would probably feel a little comforted. Lan Yunxiao's eyes flashed with a distant light. Head elder did everything for the clan, but his fatherly love for Yu Linfeng was no less than any other father's. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. There were indeed a lot of helplessness in a person's life. The first elder did not protect Yu Linfeng back then, which was indeed a failure as a father. But if he could make up for it now, it would be a good thing. When Yu Manlan saw that Lan Yunxiao and Bailey Hongzhuang had no intention of attacking them, the panic in her eyes dissipated. She hastily said, Jingquang has lost too much blood. Hurry and save him, or else he will die. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Yu Manlan indifferently and said coldly, It's just a little more blood. He won't die. Don't worry, the pain he's suffering is far from enough. He won't die so easily. With that, Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Lan Yunxiao. Father, the banquet outside is still waiting for you to host. Let's go out first. Lan Yunxiao nodded and left the dungeon with Bailey Hongzhuang, ignoring Yu Manlan and Lan Jingquang behind them. Compared to the cruel things Lan Jingquang had done in the past, this was nothing. Yu Manlan watched as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others coldly left. For the first time, she felt fear and helplessness. She had never seen Lan Jingquang in such a miserable state. As the dungeon door slammed shut, the entire dungeon fell into darkness once again, just like her life. Chapter 2843. Yun Xiao, we're planning to leave in 2 days, City Yen slowly said. They came to the Lan family to help Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing. Now that Lan Yunxiao had successfully become the patriarch of the Lan family, He and Mu Jin's didn't need to worry anymore. Moreover, both the Sun Moon Palace and Tiangang sect needed someone to oversee them. It wasn't good for them to leave for too long. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing's expressions couldn't help but change. Father, mother, you should stay here for a while longer. Mu Lingbing said. Mu Jin shook her head. We've already stayed in the Lan family for a long time. Now that everything in the Lan family is on the right track, you can just stay here. When we leave, we'll bring Lan Jingquang and the others to the Sun Moon Palace. It's not good for you to let them stay here. Sidu Yan's voice was heavy. Yu Siqing and the others had done all kinds of bad things, so they definitely wouldn't let them off easily. Once they were brought to the Sun Moon Palace, they wouldn't have any scruples in dealing with them. If they stayed in the Lan family, Lan Yunxiao would always have a brotherly relationship. If they went too far, it wouldn't be good for Lan Yunxiao's future development. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing looked at each other. They knew that Situ Yen and Mu Jins were doing this for their own good, so they immediately nodded. Although there was a certain distance between the Lan clan and the Sun Moon Palace, with their cultivation, it wouldn't take them too long to reach the Sun Moon Palace. Just like how Lan Jingquang had imprisoned them in the Yu clan, they were using the same method now. In the future, no one would ask about the whereabouts of Lan Jingquang and the others, so they didn't need to worry about anything. Hong Zhuang and I also need to return to the Tiangang sect. We've been away for a long time, so there are probably some matters in the sect that need to be dealt with. Di Baichen followed up. Now that Situ Yen was staying in the Sun Moon Palace, the matters of the Tiangang sect completely fell on Di Baichen's shoulders. This was an important task his master gave him, so he couldn't slack off. Hong Zhuang, aren't you going to stay in the Lan family for a few more days? Mu Lingbing's eyes flashed with reluctance. It hadn't been easy for her to reunite with Hong Zhuang, but she had been so busy with her revenge that she hadn't had much time to spend with Bailey Hong Zhuang. After more than 10 years of separation and so many years of blank memories, she really hoped that she could spend more time with Bailey Hong Zhuang. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled as she held Mu Lingbing's hand. Mother, the Lan family and Tiangang sect are not far from each other. It is still very convenient for us to meet. We still have a lot of time to get along in the future. I'll go back to Tiangang sect for a while. It's not too late to come back after some things are dealt with. She had not returned to Tiangang sect for a long time, and her friends were still there. Hearing this, Mu Lingbing frowned. Even though she was still very reluctant, she still nodded. Indeed, now that all the problems had been resolved, with their cultivations, there was still a long way to go. They didn't have to worry about not being able to spend time together. At this moment, Sidu Yan's words once again attracted the attention of Bailey Hong Zhuang and the others. However, before we leave, there is one more thing we need to discuss. What is it? Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but ask. Chapter 2844. Mu Jins and Sitian looked at each other, then smiled at Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Baichen. Naturally, it's time to prepare for your wedding. Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Baichen were both stunned by her words. Bailey Hong Zhuang's face quickly flushed red, and her questioning face quietly lowered. On the other hand, Di Baichen was extremely excited. His dark eyes flickered with unprecedented excitement. Really? There wasn't a moment when he didn't want to marry Bailey Hong Zhuang. Seeing Di Baichen's excited expression, Si Tuyen smiled and shook his head. This child had always been calm, so it was rare to see him so excited. Of course it's true. Lan Yunxiao couldn't help but slap his forehead. That's right, I actually forgot the most important point. Mu Lingbing's face also revealed a joyful smile. The two children's hearts had been close for so long. If it weren't for these matters delaying them, they would have gotten married long ago. I've watched Baichen grow up since he was young. I can guarantee his character. He's definitely sincere when he's with Hong Zhuang. You all know about this child's background, so he's like his grandfather. If he dares to bully Hong Zhuang, I'll be the first to not let him off. Si Tian patted Di Baichen's shoulder, his eyes flickering with a distant and gratified light. He originally thought that it was fate that he was able to pick up Di Baichen, but he didn't expect there to be an even deeper fate between them. When his background was mentioned, Di Baichen's eyes dimmed for a moment, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. His handsome and elegant face revealed a serious expression. I will definitely treat Hong Zhuang well. Mu Lingbing smiled faintly. If we were to hand Yixuan over to someone else, we would naturally not be at ease. But if we were to hand her over to Beichen, we would be completely at ease. We've all seen the relationship between you and Yi Xian. If you hadn't been helping Yi Xian all these years, I'm afraid everything would still be different. Lan Yunxiao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a loving gaze. It wasn't easy to find our precious daughter back. I really can't bear to let her marry someone else like this. Why don't we wait for another 2 years so that she can stay by our side and accompany us? Di Beichen, who was originally immersed in joy, suddenly had a bitter expression when he heard Lan Yunxiao's words. Don't, father-in-law. I've been waiting for years. Lan Yunxiao chuckled. Who told you to call me father-in-law? You stinking brat, you can't wait to kidnap my daughter. Isn't that just a matter of time? Ha! Si Tuyen and the others all laughed. This was truly a joyous occasion. We need to properly discuss how to hold this wedding. Why don't we return to the room first and discuss it in detail? Mu Lingbing suggested. Everyone nodded. This was the most important matter to them right now, so they naturally needed to properly discuss it. You all enter the room and rest for a while. I'll go invite my father over. Lan Yunxiao smiled. As Bailey Hongzhuang's grandfather, Lan Hongtai naturally had to participate in this matter. After hearing Lan Yunxiao's words, Lan Hongtai strode over to the house head's meeting room. Before he even arrived, his laughter could be heard from afar. Chapter 2845. Master, congratulations. You're about to get married. Xiao He seemed to have been injected with chicken blood and was extremely excited. They had waited for this day for too long. Although we've gotten married once before, it's a completely different feeling compared to now. Little White was also so happy that it danced with joy. Thinking back to when they first found out about their master's identity, they only felt immense pressure. The road in front of them was blank and distant. Who would have thought that unknowingly, they had already reached this place? It was truly delightful. The happiest person now is Di Beichen Baisher said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was overflowing with a joyful smile. Everyone in front of her was her family. Compared to the first marriage, which was more of a revenge, this was a real wedding with the blessings of her family. Even though she had already privately pledged her life to Di Beichen, when this day arrived, they couldn't help but be exceptionally happy. When Lan Hongtai walked into the room, he found that everyone had already gathered here, and the smile on his face couldn't help but become even wider. Yixuan is Yun Xiao and Ling Bing's only daughter, so this wedding must be grand. Lan Hongtai said. Once these words were spoken, everyone nodded in succession. That's natural. Whoever dares to make Yixuan suffer, I definitely won't let them off. When Mu Jin said this, she couldn't help but look at Situ Yen beside her. Although Situ Yen was Bailey Hongzhuang's grandfather, he now represented Di Beichen's master more. Our Tiangang sect's young sect master is getting married, so how can this extravagance be small? Situ Yen responded. Seeing that everyone had the same opinion, everyone revealed a smile. In-law, in your opinion, how should this wedding be held? Situ Yen inquired. Although he was the sect master of Tiangang sect and had seen many aspects of the world these years, he really didn't have much experience in holding a wedding. We have to choose an auspicious day first, and then inform the major forces. After all, it's such a joyous event, we have to let everyone witness it. Lan Hongtai looked at the crowd and said, What do you think? That's right. No matter if it's the Heavenly Dipper sect or the Lan family, they are both influential forces in the Shengxian continent. Now that Beichen and Yixuan are about to get married, we naturally can't be stingy. Mu Jins nodded. Logically speaking, Yixuan is the only daughter of our Lan clan's patriarch. Naturally, she has to be married off grandly from our Lan clan. However, the distance from the Lan clan to the Tiangang sect is also a problem. Lan Hongtai couldn't help but frown. With the distance between the Lan family and Tiangang sect, it would take several days just to rush there. If the wedding was carried out like this, it would take even longer. How do you usually solve this kind of problem? Mu Lingbing couldn't help but ask. If Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't be married off from the Lan clan, it would be a huge regret for them. While they were discussing, Yu Linfeng and Nan Gongwu also arrived. I heard that you were discussing the marriage between Hongzhuang and Beichen. You don't mind us coming uninvited, right? Of course, of course. Lan Yunxiao hastily stood up. Look at me, I'm so happy that I've forgotten everything. I should have invited you here earlier. Chapter 2846. Mu Lingbing's eyes lit up at Nangong Wu's words. She always felt that it would be very inconvenient for Bailey Hongzhuang to return to the Lan family after marrying into the Tiangang sect. They wouldn't be able to spend much time together. If they built a transportation array, it would be much more convenient. That's right, build a transportation array. It must be built. Mu Lingbing hastily said. Everyone couldn't help but chuckle at Mu Lingbing's joyful expression. Her longing for her daughter was too obvious. Mu Lingbing didn't mind. I only have one precious daughter. Naturally, I can't bear to not see her often. Lan Yunxiao nodded. Building a transportation array is a must. It's best to build one at the Sun Moon Palace as well. That way, it'll be more convenient for Bing to return to her parents' home. Although they'd already acknowledged each other, they often had to stay in the sect due to their status. If they could save some time on the road, it'd naturally be for the best. Mu Lingbing looked at Lan Yunxiao with a gentle gaze, her eyes filled with joy. That's right. We have to prepare for this first. Once the transportation array is built, it'll be more convenient to hold the wedding. Sidu Yen nodded. Leave this matter to me. Lan Hongtai's face was full of smiles. I owe Yishuan a lot. I hope she can take advantage of this opportunity to erase some of her hatred for this old man. Bailey Hongzhuang, who had been listening with her head bowed, couldn't help but raise her head and hastily say, Grandfather, how could I still be angry at you? Lan Hongtai couldn't help but laugh. That's what grandfather wants to do for you. Yishuan, your grandfather wants to do something for you. Let's do it. Lan Yunxiao smiled. He'd often chatted with Lan Hongtai these past few days and naturally understood his thoughts. Lan Hongtai felt extremely indebted to Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang. He always wanted to do something for them. Now that he had the chance to prepare for Hongzhuang's wedding, he must be extremely happy. Of course I have no problem. Grandpa is also willing to work for me. I can't be happier. Following that, everyone continued to give their opinions on the wedding of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. All kinds of complicated details and etiquette were discussed and decided one by one. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. Compared to the wedding details that everyone was talking about now, their previous wedding could not be more simple. It was obvious that Di Beichen attached great importance to this wedding. When Lan Yunxiao and the others were discussing, he listened attentively and even gave his opinions from time to time. Not only did Si Tuyen and the others not want to wrong Bailey Hongzhuang, but he also didn't want to wrong Bailey Hongzhuang. This was the only woman he loved in his life. After waiting for so long, he wanted to give her the best. Now that he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's relatives here, he felt that his long wait was worth it. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen's serious side profile and her heart gradually warmed and softened. From when they first met when she was 14 years old to now when she was about to turn 20, she was so glad that this man had always been by her side. Chapter 2847. Di Beichen raised his head and saw Bailey Hongzhuang's soft, almost melting gaze. His handsome face couldn't help but reveal a doting smile. Just by looking at each other and smiling, they understood each other's feelings. There was already too much tacit understanding between them. There was no need for too much expression. Just being able to see each other was already a kind of happiness. Lan Hongtai, Si Tuyen, and the others discussed for a long time before finalizing the details of the wedding. After they confirmed the details of the wedding, everyone revealed joyful smiles. Everyone has already divided up the work. Let's get these things done as soon as possible. I also have to quickly arrange for people to build the teleportation array. Lan Hongtai's face was full of smiles. He hadn't been so happy in a long time. Jince and I will make a trip back to Sun Moon Palace first. We'll take care of the teleportation array there. This will speed up the process. Si Tian said. Hong Zhuang and I will also make a trip back to Tiangang sect. There are many places that need to be prepared. Si Tuyen nodded. After I return from Sun Moon Palace, I'll go to Tiangang sect. That place needs help the most. Lingbing and I will be in charge of preparing Hong Zhuang's wedding dress and dowry. Nangong Wu smiled, her eyes filled with joy. Mu Lingbing gazed at the elegant and beautiful Bailey Hong Zhuang in front of her. In her mind, she was thinking that she had to personally make the most beautiful wedding dress for her daughter. Fortunately, she could still see her daughter get married in her lifetime. Looking at the relatives in front of her who were already busy planning how to help her, Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes couldn't help but heat up. Everyone in front of her was the greatest happiness in her life. The next day, Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen set off for Tiangang sect. Si Tian and Mu Jins also brought Yu Siqing and the others to Sun Moon Palace. When everyone saw Lan Jingquang's arms hanging down just like that, their expressions changed a little. There wasn't the slightest bit of pity, only joy. Yu Siqing's appearance had completely changed. Her entire body was as thin as bones, and her eyes were deeply sunken. She was like a withered old woman, and she no longer had the slightest bit of her former demeanor. On her exposed skin, everyone could see the tree bark that was gradually appearing. It was extremely frightening. Mu Jinsei looked at Yu Siqing and felt a burst of joy in her heart. In the past, she couldn't accept this and had sealed herself away for more than 10 years. Now, she had finally returned all of this to Yu Siqing. She and Yu Siqing used to be good sisters, so she knew how much Yu Siqing cared about her appearance. When she returned to Sun Moon Palace, she would specially prepare a prison for Yu Siqing. She would fill the prison with mirrors so that Yu Siqing could clearly see her current appearance. As for Yu Manlan and Lan Jingquang, they were not feeling well either. Bailey Hong Zhuang's poison tortured them almost every day, making them wish they were dead. What scared them the most was Bailey Hong Zhuang's words. Yu Siqing had poisoned Lan Yunxiao and Mu Bingbing with dozens of poisons. Bailey Hong Zhuang would return these poisons to them even more severely. At the very least, in the next 20 years, they wouldn't die. They would only experience what Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing had felt. Father, mother, will be leaving first, Bailey Hong Zhuang said with a smile. Chapter 2848. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxiao both nodded. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing both found the way to address him funny, but they knew this son-in-law couldn't run away. Remember to come back early. We still have a lot of things to prepare. Mu Lingbing smiled. Father, take care. Mother, take care. Immediately after, Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen set off in the direction of Tiangang sect. When Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen returned to Tiangang sect, they looked at the familiar scene and couldn't help but reveal a rueful smile. They had left Tiangang sect for several months. In just a few months, many things had happened. When they returned, many things had changed. When Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen appeared, Tiangang sect's disciples noticed them and immediately bowed. Greetings, young sect master. Compared to the doubts they had for Bailey Hong Zhuang before, everyone's views were completely different now. Even when Bailey Hong Zhuang won first place in the alchemist competition, everyone only confirmed that Bailey Hong Zhuang was a genius. However, her status was still inferior to Di Beichen. Since the Battle of Zhualu, everyone knew that Bailey Hong Zhuang wasn't an ordinary cultivator. Her identity was the young palace master of Wuji Palace. In this way, Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen were a true match made in heaven. However, the news that spread not long ago was no different from a heavy bomb in Tiangang sect. It turned out that Bailey Hong Zhuang wasn't an ordinary person. She was actually the granddaughter of the sect master. In this way, Bailey Hong Zhuang wasn't an outsider of Tiangang sect. Her identity was very honorable. Not only that, Bailey Hong Zhuang was actually the second miss of the Lan family. The matter of the 7-colored pearl had now been spread to everyone. No one would have thought that there would be such a relationship between Lan Qingyan and Bailey Hong Zhuang. It was really amazing. The incident at the Lan family's conferring ceremony could be said to have spread from 1 person to 10, from 10 to 100. In a short period of time, everyone understood clearly. This made the people who were puzzled by Bailey Hongzhuang's concealment of her identity understand the reason. No one would have thought that Bailey Hongzhuang carried such a huge grudge, personally rescuing her parents and returning to the Lan family to take back everything. In their opinion, all these things were difficult for a 19-year-old girl to do. Recalling all the harsh thoughts they had towards Bailey Hongzhuang in the past, they thought that Bailey Hongzhuang used seductive means to seduce the young sect master. It was too shallow. They were a few years older than Bailey Hongzhuang, but they knew that none of them could do the same as Bailey Hongzhuang. In a short period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang had become their idol. Bailey Hongzhuang walked in Tiangang sect. From the happy eyes of the surrounding disciples, she could see that they no longer had the various opinions they had in the past. Many times, it was useless to explain to others. However, when you really did something, everyone would quietly change their opinion of you. After receiving the news, the 4 hall masters and the elders came out to welcome them immediately. After seeing the figures of Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching, everyone's face revealed a smile. Welcome back, young sect master and eldest miss. The 4 hall masters and the elders bowed together. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.